computer. Okay, so please say briefly what's your name, how old you are, where you are now.
Okay, my name is Ivan Kurmanov. I'm 42. I'm in Minsk in my office right now, where I do most of my work. And I'm at the end of probably the most difficult year I had in my life, the most challenging one, for multiple different reasons.
Yeah, so well, since you mentioned that, I hope, I mean, like the end of the year will be more generous.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are hoping for that. I know this year has been challenging for many people in many different countries. So yeah, but who knows? Whatever it brings, we have to deal with it.
So this is your office. This is where you work with clients online these days, or face to face?
Yeah, I currently mostly work online. I do not have face-to-face meetings right now because of the virus situation. But an important thing is that most of my work is not really a therapy work. Primarily, my primary profession is I would say, it's a management work in the IT. Basically, I'm working with programmers as a manager. Yeah,
okay.
That's my primary profession, and Gestalt therapy is my second profession. I consider it to be my second profession. Yeah.
Interesting. I will ask you more, I guess, maybe later about that. But the first type of questions that we usually ask people about are, how would you define yourself as a human being? What are your qualities? What are your values?
Yeah, I have seen that I have seen basically one interview so far, not even in full, but I think that's a trick question of some some sort. I don't believe you can really define a person. I don't believe I can define myself really in any meaningful words, because of course I have a story. I have some traits, personality traits, some character features. I don't know. I have some personal history, stuff like that, as everyone does. But I don't trust that to be able to define myself, and I don't think it defines anyone. I think, on the other hand, there's one other thing, yeah. Let me explain. Probably, I don't think that our history, our achievements, our personality traits, they have to tell something about us. But if that were all there were about a person, then it wouldn't be much. There's always something which we cannot grasp, which we cannot pinpoint. I think I don't want to get into to philosophy right now here, but I think that's something that
do get into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, every psychology school of psychology would try to explain something about people, about their behavior, about their I don't know, the psyche and how it works and how it behaves and why it behaves in certain ways. And I don't know, the psychoanalysis would have its own theories, other psychology movements will have other theories, and all they have something they useful. They grasp something. But I don't know. The biology approach suggests other explanations and reasons, and all they have something, some truth to them. But they all leave something, or should leave, I guess. Shouldn't try to explain everything, because it's impossible. You can't explain everything by the laws of science or biology or psychoanalysis or anything, because there's always something like the spirit or the attention or the consciousness, something that you cannot really explain. Something, the willpower, it always comes to some paradox when you try to do that. I think it's as far as I see. So yeah.
I mean, I like this answer. It sounds well according to this spirit of Gestalt therapy, because momentarily I recall myself this distinction Peter Philipson uses. He's doing it after Peirce, or even I guess Goodman, but this distinction between self and self-concept, like self is in action all the time, in flow, and as you said, and self-concept is exactly the answers to this question that we sometimes have, and it is changing. But nevertheless, if I ask some of your friends, some of your close ones, what would they say about you, like the very first things?
Okay. Well, I don't know what they would actually say, but I can guess, of course. And of course, if you ask different people, they will say different things. Recently, in my family, I said something like I was talking about somebody, some kind person, and then I said I compared myself or I suggested myself as an example of a kind person, and my son, and my wife, they both just exclaimed, they were ready to protest. They said, "You are the kind person? No." But yeah. So, but I do think that some people may say that I am the kind person. Probably my friends might be able to say that. Some of them. I would say I'm a slow person. Many times I'm not very energetic often. I'm usually slow and calm, at least on the surface. Yeah. I do tend to think a lot, and sometimes too much. I do tend to complain if I'm in a situation where I trust the people next to me. I would often complain, but I would also be happy to share the other people's pain or suffering. it often finds resonance in me. So I often understand when people complain.
Mm-hmm.
I already said I'm thinking a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like things kind of a little. I sometimes prefer complicated things to basic things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I don't know, the music or the books, the philosophy, something that is more stimulating to the intellectual part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, my wife would complain that I'm shaming her for listening to the most pop music, like. But I wouldn't usually shame her, but I would tire easily. I would ask her to not to listen too
Uh-huh.
much
Okay.
because
Uh-huh.
I'm getting tired of
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
I understand. Okay. Uh-huh. 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 And what do you like doing? What are your, passions?
Well, I actually enjoy my work.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I like my work. I like to. I find satisfaction in picking complex issues apart into smaller things, into clear things, into things I can understand and describe and document and explain and manage. I think that's something I do both in my
Mm.
management work and in therapy. At least that's what I strive to. Uh, I like games. I like, as I mentioned, music.
Mm-hmm.
I like um, I like computer games,
Mm-hmm.
among other things. I
Mm-hmm.
like walking. I'm just I live in a big city, and it's tiring if you don't uh, walk outside for a while. I get very tired if I don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't spend some time just looking into the sky or the trees or the I don't know the birds, something like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
something it's an important resource for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing related to what you are now describing and speaking about is what influenced you, who also, but w- yeah, what circumstances shaped you the way you are today?
Mhm. I think probably uh, yeah. I want to jump back to one of your previous questions. One of the tendencies I have as a person is sometimes being too dramatic,
Mm-hmm.
and in this fashion, I would say that probably my failures, my dark periods, my most painful experiences have shaped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, that includes the personal relationship
Mm-hmm.
stories or dramatic periods. Uh, that includes professional failures and misachievements. I would say all of them have pushed me to some new territories, some new. Um,
Mm-hmm.
mm, I don't know, investigations and
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
trying new things. I think that's probably true for most humans. But for me, it's definitely true. I learn after having some attempts failed, or some old ways not working anymore. Just as it's typical in Gestalt therapy to mention that you have to. One is forced to look for a creative solution when the old ways don't work anymore. Yeah.
I am aware of and curious maybe because I'm aware of the fact that we are the same age almost. Yeah, I'm 40 and we live. We are neighbors, and I wonder. And I feel this kind of connection. I sense it somehow, and I wonder if living in where you are has shaped you in some ways. In what ways? Yeah, I don't know how to what I want to hear, but it's like yeah, even looking at your plant there, I have a very similar one in my apartment, you know. Which is not so. I mean, even people from Western European countries, it's already some similarities, but some differences. And as you may have seen, I have conducted lots of interviews with people from the US. And yeah, and it is so interesting what I am experiencing when interviewing people from our region. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know what your resonance to what I'm saying is. I would be, yeah, curious if there is any.
I don't know. First of all, I know it's not. It's pleasant to hear. It's nice to hear what you are saying. It's something that is just kind of makes me both a little excited inside and a little warm. I understand. Yeah. By the way, I when you asked the previous question, but no, when I answered your previous question, I was thinking. After that, I was thinking maybe my answer was too general. I didn't say in specific what shaped me. One of the things that has shaped me when I was like, was it? Just give me a second. It was 20 something years ago. I went. I've spent all my life here in Belarus. I was born in Minsk, and it was in Soviet Union times yet. And when I was like 20 years old or something, I was a university student. I went to London to work for a project. It was on vacation. It was just 10 days or something. And it was my first visit to a Western country. And it was a very important thing for me. It was a very important experience. And importantly, I went there on my own. I went there without my parents. And that was both a challenge, and it was a very interesting, very exciting experience for me. Yeah, we here, of course, Poland is also was a Soviet country, a communist country, basically, and we share a lot of we can understand things some people on the West cannot understand. And yes, I grew here. I don't know. When I was a child, I was my family was a typical engineers family, and I was a communist pioneer in school. I used to carry this red tie, and when maybe I was in 5th grade or something, I went out and bought a Lenin portrait of Lenin, and I hang it on my wall in my room, and I was totally I believed it, everything that was said, and I was wanting to be a good person, and I believed I'm lucky to be born in Soviet Union. Yeah. Did it shape me? Of course, it influenced how I grew up and who I am. Do I believe it's still true and the Soviet Union was the greatest country? Of course not. I think when I'm thinking about things you said, that we are neighbors, when I'm thinking about this common past of our countries, it makes me sad. Yeah, it makes me sad. There's nothing, I don't have a lot of illusions about the West, it being the ideal place or anything like that, but if we just think about the past of Poland and Soviet Union and Belarus, there's a lot of sad things there for me.
Yeah, thank you actually for naming this, because I feel this sadness actually as well. And at the same time, I'm happy to recognize it and to feel somehow feel this common ground with you. And I guess it might be a source of some strength that I've never been so much aware of. I don't know what kind of strength, but yes, it is like, as Polish people, we always, and I definitely as well, have aspired so much to this Western culture.
Yeah.
Even as you said already, disillusioned or whatever the term is, but yeah, and actually being somehow ashamed of my roots to some extent. Yeah, so this sad feelings shows me that there is a major transformation in me. There's been a major transformation in me yeah, yeah, and that's it. That's just it maybe.
I'm sorry, what kind of transformation do you mean here?
I don't know, like actually recognizing where I'm coming from, instead of looking west all the time. I'm exaggerating a bit to make this picture more, clear, but
yeah.
Yeah, there is some sentiment I for sure I somehow rejected about, I don't know, about my identity, if you like. I know that you you oppose those
No, no,
notions. Well,
no.
I'm joking a bit, and I'm also surprised myself that it is important. It is important, and I like to feel that we have something in common. We can understand one another on different levels. I assume. Mm. 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 So so something like that. So tell me, because you said something about your early teenage years. You mentioned this travel voyage trip to London.
Yeah.
And what happened in between? What kind of person you were? Why this kind of study and not the other one? And when on this path Gestalt therapy emerged?
Okay. I um, uh, okay. So my dad was an engineer and a manager also in a at an institute in Minsk, and they were developing the computers as far as it was one of the companies, one of the institutes who worked on personal computers, first on computers in general, then on personal computers, and it was before the personal computers became the well available tool. And sometimes he had the luxury, he could bring a computer back to home. He could bring it from work to home. Yeah. And when that happened a couple of times in our family, I not only was excited about it and about being able to play on it, but very soon I got very curious about how it works and stuff like that. And as my dad was working in the area, he had some books, and I've started experimenting with, and that I very quickly became fascinated and interested, and I became the
Sorry,
first.
again. Sorry. Sometimes it's on my computer, the telephone rings, even though the phone is switched off. Sorry.
Okay, okay. So that became my very deep interest of mine, and but then that was back when I was in school, and when I was getting close to graduate the school, it was a question of where to go to study, and I was more leaning towards philosophy and psychology. But my parents didn't think it was very practical, as it's typical and stereotypical, I would say. And they kind of talked me out of it and talked me into going to the economics, which was kind of fashionable at the time and looked potentially interesting and useful. It was like 1994, I think. Was the Soviet Union already has already fallen apart, and Belarus was an independent country, and I did follow that advice. I did go to study economics, but on one hand, I always continued tinkering with computers and was interested in that. And when internet became available. I think it was 1996 or 1997. Again, I asked my dad to purchase access into internet for me, and he did that, and he supported that. And through the internet, I discovered some people who were working on economics research dissemination. So they didn't do economics research themselves, but they worked on public services for researchers to basically they're working on an electronic library for economics research. And it was a project, they were basically mostly volunteer project, but they had some money to employ some work. And I almost by chance I got there. I didn't understand really what these people were, what they were doing. I got in contact, and they asked me, if you want to work, why don't you try? And that happened. That chance meeting, that chance encounter happened, which developed into a multi-year relationship. I worked with these people for, I think, for about 10 years. First, I just, as I mentioned, I came the first time for just 10 days, and then next time I came there for, I don't know, like 6 weeks. I learned a whole big lot of different stuff technically, and at the same time I continued my economics study. But on the other hand, there's as many students, I like to walk with my friends, to walk near my university after the studies or before the studies, and there was a bookshop, and I didn't never read a lot of books really, but I always liked looking at them and taking them in my hands and imagining how they feel if I read them. So once I was in a bookshop, and a book caught my eye, which was called Non-Standard Kid, or Non-Standard Child, Unusual Child, basically. And it was by a Russian psychologist person, and it was a half fiction book. At the same time, it was a psychology book, and it was very unusual. And I got it in my hands, and it was kind of, I was very intrigued. I find that I was willing to read this book just there in the bookshop. So I thought it was a good idea to buy it and to actually read whenever I have time. That's just a little sign. Was a little sign for myself that there's some kind of interest inside me for it. I think as a teenager, I came out of teenage years on one hand with a strong hard to recognize shame inside me, which is very typical, I think, at least in my country, in my society where I grew up. On the other hand, I was I had some grandiose ideas about myself. I felt like I don't know, I'm in some ways a great person, some I don't know, very capable, very clever, something like that. And then of course, I had this
up and downs, or
yes, up and downs, yes. Now I can say narcissistic, but by then I didn't have these words, and it was good I didn't have them. And so I think this, I'm mentioning this teenage years and this kind of up and downs, because that's something that I had within me and within my experience, but I didn't know how to relate to that, how to understand it. And that's probably one of the reasons why I was interested in psychology in the first place. There was something, I felt there was something something wrong, something bad, something uncomfortable within me. I wasn't sure what it is, and that I was interested in that, and I was and that book, this non-standard child, uh, it has nothing to do with Gestalt therapy or theory of it. It's totally different kind of school of thought. But it was, I later purchased all the books I had of that author. I read all of them, and it's a very interesting person and book, and I remember them till this day, some of them.
And all are they half fiction, half psychological?
No, they mostly they are like some would probably they would be categorized as non-fiction right now, like they are not science books, but they are for wider audience, but but they are non-fiction books. So when I graduated the university, I started working as a software developer, as an engineer, basically, and then like I don't know, 9 years later, I started. I've tried to have more responsibility and started managing projects. And about the same time, I had a personal relationship crisis, so deep that I was depressed. And at the same, maybe just before that, I also, all the time since the university, I was looking for some. I was looking at meditation teachings. I was looking at the some self-development schools. I was looking for something all the time, and I was finding, of course, some organizations, some groups of people with similar interests. But then this this relationship crisis came, and we nearly divorced with my wife. I had a deep conflict with my parents. I was alone. I didn't know what friendship means. I didn't have any real friends. And then I complained in my online diary, and people started recommending psychologists to me. And the first psychologist I went to, it wasn't a Gestalt therapist, and I wasn't fully ready to. I wasn't submitting. I'm ready to submit myself. I was still hoping that I will run out by myself. I wasn't acknowledging the state I was in. But like 4 or 5 months later, I was already deeper in depression. I was ready to accept that I'm not able to cope with things myself. I'm probably not going to manage it myself, and I have to get professional help. And that's what I did. And I I went into therapy with a Gestalt therapist here in Minsk, and I stayed in that therapy for 5 years. I went into training with the same person, into the training group led by this person and her colleague, and I liked it. And she noticed my interest in psychology, and she recognized and helped me recognize my interest in psychology. And that's why she suggested that I go to training also. That was very important for me. With her help, I grew through that crisis. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, basically, and my past experiences. I understood much better what happens. I know what I'm doing in relationships, why I'm ruining them sometimes. So that was a major shift. And since then, I've never stopped. I've continued learning in Gestalt therapy. I've continued practicing whatever to the extent I can. I've been in family therapy for a long while, long-term family therapy. I've studied as a therapist myself, and I've been practicing family therapy also as a co-therapist. I'm taking part in groups. I enjoy that. I feel that's a very important source of help for me, source of resource for me, basically.
And if you could tell me what attracted you in Gestalt therapy? I mean, if it is possible for you to recognize it, because as I imagine, it was mainly you were really deep into this crisis, but maybe nevertheless this Gestalt approach was somehow meaningful even then.
Yes, that's a good question. At some point, when I was already in therapy and in training, I remember a person wrote to me on social media about some personal development school, some personal development seminars, something, maybe even it was something about spirituality. And he asked some questions like, are you still looking for a path or something? If not, come to us. I don't know, something like that. And I remember responding to him, I'm not looking anymore. And when I wrote that, I meant Gestalt therapy in some way. I meant that it's not, it has been very important that Gestalt therapy, even though there are people who find it, in their experience, they find it a cult-like society, or they find that it's the organization is I don't know, it's hierarchical. You have to pay money, and it's like a pyramid, has a pyramid structure. For me, when I got in contact with Gestalt therapy, the most important thing that I was able to carry out of it was respect. I felt respected. and I understood that that I respect the people that I'm getting close by, or getting in relationship there. I don't know how to explain that, what it actually means, but I knew that I do have a right for my own position, for my own thinking. I'm not forced into any part of that. I'm not expected to conform strictly. There are some rules. You have to, I know, you have to be on time on session. You have to pay when, but beyond that, there's not much rules, not many rules. I know that was very important for me, and I like that. The respect is what my my top top point, top priority of what I got from Gestalt therapy, and it's very important that it wasn't. I felt like I didn't do. It wasn't anything special there. It was just the feature of the community. It's not that you have to be great to be respected there. You just have to be part of the community, and then you are respected. I don't know. For me, it was very important, and that's something, as I mentioned, that's something I took out of it, and I started to respect myself. That helped me to learn to respect myself. And after that, yeah, I'm not really in a spiritual search anymore. I'm not really in search of a group of people who will recognize me as a person, because I am already recognized. I'm already a person. I don't need. There's much less of a drive towards being not noticed or serving to a group of people or something like that.
And what about some difficult moments with Gestalt therapy? I mean, what was the most challenging for you during those years of training, maybe also therapy? Yeah, what seems to be the most challenging for you?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna undress a little bit. So I don't know why, but I think when you ask me this, the most challenging thing is actually living through the hard feelings, the pain. I don't know why I'm thinking about that when you ask me about the Gestalt therapy challenges. Maybe basically when maybe because after all these years of therapy and training, I do feel a lot. I have a lot of. I am a sensitive person. I feel a lot of resonance when I talk to people, when I listen to people, when I read people, maybe before that it was easier to ignore things. I don't know. But now it is, you kind of have to I have to let through myself a lot of different things. And oftentimes they are complicated, they are complex, they might be conflicting, ambivalent. They might be pulsating from grief to anger to fear and back. And you just kind of have to deal with it. I mean, it just comes and goes, and that's hard. But on the other hand, I don't know. I'm feeling alive, and I would never. I don't want to to never say, as they say, never say never. But I don't know why would I ever want to go back.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me some, I don't know, some months ago, maybe even a year ago or more, I interviewed some people, and this had nothing to do with humans of Gestalt. These were like senior therapists of Gestalt therapy from Poland. And they were telling this story of how Gestalt therapy was being introduced in Poland. And you know, the funny thing, and this is related to what you have already said, I guess, that some therapists of those early 80s in Poland, they were fascinated by Gestalt therapy, but at least half of them later reoriented towards psychodynamic or systems therapy, system therapy, family therapy, because they simply didn't want to feel that much. And it was interesting for me to hear it, because it is actually, as you said this, people don't usually mention it as the most challenging, but it is very difficult, no? It is, you know, to be a Gestalt therapist with all those emotions going through you all the time. With no, with not so much distance as it is at least considered in other approaches. Yeah, so just this is something. Okay, so I am aware of the time. Ivan, would you like to add something to the previous questions, or maybe I'm obviously curious about your future. Do you imagine yourself working as a therapist only, or you would like to continue combining those two professional spheres?
That's an open question for me. I really don't know, and I like, as I mentioned, I like my work now, and that includes my engineering, my technical work, my management work, and my therapy work. It feels like I like them both equally at the same time. At least I definitely can say I get satisfaction from both. I do sometimes think whether I should choose one and concentrate on it and focus on it. But so far, I'm lucky and I'm happy I don't have to,
Mm-hmm.
and I can combine them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really feel lucky about it. I mean, there's something. I think there's some kind of luxury in that, in being able to do that. Um, I really don't know what I'm going to do in 5 or 10 years. Maybe I will actually focus on something. I had thoughts about um, maybe looking for some kind of compromise, or better a better word would be a combination of the two. Maybe like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like focusing on therapy for example, for um, groups of software engineers, for example, or something like organizational consulting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I'm gonna slowly, but as much as I can, I will try to move both of my professions ahead a little bit, as far as I can. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At one point, this question was specifically uh, uh, hard for me. I mean, at some point, it was specifically what's the word? It was it was kind of cutting me through a little
Uh-huh.
bit,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, I had a metaphor that was born at that moment, that I'm a little bit like a dragon with multiple heads, and I can continue to be so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you don't have to cut any of your heads. You can continue to be a dragon with multiple heads, and that's a huge that's a liberation
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for me.
Sure, sure. I like this image. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, Ivan, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to listen to you too. Thank you for sharing, yeah, your story. Mm.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking and listening to me. And it was a pleasure for me. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you any questions.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm left with some curiosity towards you, and
Mm.
maybe I'll think what exactly is my curiosity about, and maybe later I'll ask you
Please.
some
Yeah,
questions.
please do. Sure, sure. I'll be happy. I know there is this kind of imbalance.
Yeah.
So thank you. I will send you a video, and I will send you a form, a consent for.
Okay.
Okay. So have a good rest of the day, and yeah, and see
Thank
you
you.
soon. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.